Let's be honest. When we walk into a car dealership, we expect to be taken advantage of. At least we expect them to try to take advantage of us. In fact, I'd say there's no other business that I know of anyway where the customer walks in expecting bad service, a bad experience, and still buys anyway. What's really interesting though is why car dealerships still exist in their current form. In this day and age of the internet and price transparency, you would think that they actually couldn't get away with the practices that they engage in. But surprisingly, not only do they, but they're doing better than ever. This is due to lack of regulation in many aspects of the business anyway, and candidly, they just don't want to change. Dealers prep, documentation, and preparation fees are all good examples of costs that nobody really understands, and often they come up as a surprise at the end, but people just pay them anyway. The reason is that society has conditioned us to accept that this is okay. Don't get me wrong, there's the occasional brave soul who will see a reconditioning fee and fight valiantly to have that taken off the cost of the car, and even walk away if it's not taken off the cost of the car. But by and large, people will buy even if they don't understand the fee. These costs are like the resort fee at the hotel, the $10 resort fee. You know, the one for beach chairs that you never use. Or the early parking discount that goes away when you actually park for less time. You come in at 9 a.m. instead of 7:30 a.m. People just pay them and they never ask the question, why am I paying this? It's one thing to pay $10 more for towels or a chair. It's another altogether to pay $1,200 for the dealer to clean up the car and inspect it before they sell it to you. But yet people do it anyway. And the fact is, as long as they tell you about the fee before you sign the agreement, they're not breaking the law. But a lot of times that happens in the finance manager's office as you're sitting down, and it's glossed over very quickly. It's a bit like being told you need to sign a prenuptial agreement when you're in line to walk down the aisle. Is it illegal? No. Is it distasteful? Totally. However, when you work in the Wild West of retail, and I would say car sales is the Wild West of retail, lines do get crossed, even for a car dealership. And when you see those lines, you need to walk away. This video is about those lines. The first is undisclosed fees at the signing of your agreement. Let me explain. A minute ago, I talked about disclosing the fees as you're in the finance manager's office. But what if he just tells you, or she just tells you to start signing, and you start seeing things that you're paying for, and they've never been explained to you? Well, first, that's illegal. They need to be explained to you. And to be candid, most will try to fit it into the conversation somewhere. Of course, there's a dealer prep fee. Don't you want us to make sure that it runs as expected and to make sure it's cleaned up before you get the car? Well, yes, since you put it that way, I suppose I do. I'm sorry I asked, but since I am asking, isn't that part of the fee that I'm paying you anyway to make sure that you're selling me a car that works? If unexplained fees or barely explained fees start popping up in the finance manager's office as you're looking at the agreement, I would take the agreement home, the contract home, and read it. Now, of course, they don't want you to do this because you might have buyer's remorse, but I would do it anyway because you have a right to read that agreement from cover to cover, so to speak. The next is a term called yo-yo financing, and because it has a term, it happens enough so that people actually have given it a term. Simply put, yo-yo financing is where you agree all of the terms of the deal, including the interest rate, and the dealer gives you the car to drive home. You sign the paperwork, or most of the paperwork anyway, and as you're getting ready to leave, the dealer says, we are in agreement on the terms, however, the interest rate, we have to get signed off on the bank, and it's the weekend, or the person at the bank is at lunch, or our computers are down, or something, so we'll just confirm that back to you later. Thinking that everything is okay, because why would they give you a car if the paperwork wasn't complete, including that little provision that just needs to be dealt with? You drive away, show it to friends and family, take them all for a test drive, only to get a phone call the next day from the dealership saying, we know we told you it was 4.99%, but it's really 5.99%. If you don't have the final interest rate, walk away. And the reason is because it's a psychological one. They know that you're going to go and show your car off to your friends and family. If nothing else, most people are more in love with their car the second day that they own it than the first. And so when they tell you that your interest rate has gone up 1% and your payment is an extra $100 a month, more than likely you'll be okay with it. By the way, this happened to me when I bought my first new car. I was 25 years old and I was making a decision between a Jeep SUV and a Ford SUV. And it was 51% to the Jeep, 49% to the Ford. So I had discussions with both dealerships and I finally made the decision I'm going to go with the Jeep. I talked to the salesperson that I'd been talking to for the last few weeks, gave him a call, said I was coming in, confirmed the price, and showed up to sign the paperwork. To which he said, well, the price has gone up $899 since I talked to you this morning. I said, what are you talking about? We agreed the price. I'm here to sign at the price that was discussed. And he said, I'm sorry, but that price is no longer available. And he gave me no other information. Fortunately for me, I had a very strong plan B, and that was the Ford. And so I looked at the salesman and I said, we just lost the deal. I'm going to go buy the Ford. I got up, walked out, got in my car, and started driving away. I looked up and he's in front of me, signaling me to stop. I rolled down my window, a little bit freaked out that he jumped out in front of a moving vehicle, but put that aside for a second. And he said, I got you the price that I promised you earlier today. Now, at 25 years old, I accidentally learned a valuable lesson, and it's one that I still implement today. And that is, if you're going to buy something, or if you're going to sign an agreement on something, don't fall in love with one something, fall in love with two. Because if the first one falls through, or the first one doesn't turn out to be the deal that you were looking for, well, you can always move on to the second deal. In this case, I had the Ford as a very, very strong backup. Also, today I would have just steered around the salesman and kept going, but I hadn't developed my negotiation prowess at the time, so, well, there you go. I went back in the dealership, signed the paperwork, and he said, there's just one small thing. The interest rate is 4.99%. However, the bank personnel that we're working with is out to lunch, so they haven't confirmed that back to us yet. Take the car, and I'll call you later if there are any issues. Don't plan on having any issues, but I'll call you later if there are any issues. Enjoy the car. You earned it. Have a good day. Now, at the end of the day, I got a phone call from the salesman. He said the financing didn't go through. Instead of paying 4.99%, you need to pay 6.99%. I said, how could that be? I signed everything and I have it in writing. He said, yes, but you didn't sign one document. We need you to come back in and sign that last document, and it will be 6.99%. Now, when you have a strong backup, like the other car, and fortunately I hadn't sported around with my friends and family in my new car, it's very easy to say, well, come get the car, because I don't want it. And that's exactly what I said. I think he was a little bit shocked, but he said, hold on a second, got back on the phone and said, we can give it to you for 5.99%. And I said, you're not hearing me. I don't want the car. Come get it. By the way, legally, most of the time, if someone changes the terms of a deal on you, an agreed deal, before signing or before finalizing, even if they offer you the same deal, it's not valid unless you re-agree to it. So, I digress. He got back on the phone and he said, well, the dealership is going to eat it, but we're going to give it to you for the 4.99% that we agreed. And I said, you're not hearing me. I don't want the car. I'll be by in less than an hour to drop it off. If you're not there, I'm going to leave the keys at the front desk, but the car is yours, not mine. And he said the wrong thing. He said, well, you've signed all the paperwork. You're agreed. The car is yours at 4.99%. I said, no, you told me that we're not complete until I sign one final document, whatever that is. I haven't signed that document. I don't want the car. An hour later, I drove the car over, and it was a bit like being in a police lineup. When I walked in, I was escorted into the office. The sales manager was there, the salesman was there, and I walked out of that office an hour later with a 3.99% interest rate and the car. Was it the perfect deal? No, because one of the elements of buying a new car is that almost regardless of what you pay for it, you want to feel like it was a wonderful outcome for you. And this is something very personal. A car is very personal for a lot of people. But Was it the outcome that I had hoped for? It was better than what I had hoped for, and it was also quite passive aggressive, and the deal did work for me. The next walk away is when you walk in the dealership, if the salesman is looking for you to make some sort of commitment before allowing you to take a test drive. I'll give you a good example. One would be to put $200 down on the vehicle. Another is allowing them to inspect your trade-in. Or a third is to start the paperwork, the credit application, just to make sure that you qualify. All of those are sure signals that you need to walk away. Now let me tell you what's going on here. You'll get some sort of rationale that will sound a lot like the $10 resort fee explanation. You know the one, you got to pay for the beach chair. Well, why do I pay for the beach chair but not the bed? That doesn't make a lot of sense to me. But okay, if you say that that's part of the cost, then that's part of the cost. Well, that's the type of explanation you're going to get for the preconditioning, is a good way to describe it, that you get when you want to test drive a car. But remember this, they need to earn your business. You don't need to earn the test drive. And frankly, the rationale may vary. One of the reasons is simply they want to move you along in the sales process. And if you filled out a credit application, well, you're sort of subliminally committing to buying the car because you're 10%, 20% of the way there. But the other is they may really, in fact, want to know if you can afford to buy that car. Now, there are a lot of videos out there on YouTube and others that say why looking poor is important. And that's absolutely true, except you don't want to walk into a car dealership with holes in your shoes. There are limits to how far you can take this. And if you walk in with holes in your shoes, you're probably going to have someone put a credit application in front of you. And the bottom line is this, no matter what reason they give, they're just making it up. And if the problem persists, if they insist on you making some form of commitment towards purchasing the car before going on a test drive, it's time to walk. Next is failure to disclose a salvage title. Now, this is a big one, and unlike the others, which are pretty hard to prove, this one is not. Now, let me explain what this is. You go in to buy a car, and it's a beautiful car, and it looks a little bit mispriced, a little bit less than what you're seeing in the newspaper, and you don't know why. Well, there's a possibility that it's what's called a salvaged title. Now, what's a salvaged title? Well, assume that you went out and you bought a $40,000 car last year. You put $5,000 down and you're financing $35,000. You drive it for a year. You don't really drive it much. It has low miles, but you get into an accident. It's not one where the car is completely bent up, but it's kind of banged up. So you call your insurance agent. He comes out, inspects the car, and assesses that there's about $15,000 worth of damage. The replacement car in the newspaper is $30,000. So you would think that $15,000 worth of damage, you can buy a replacement car for $30,000. Therefore, the insurance company will cover the $15,000. Well, the insurance company is going to make an assessment. That assessment is, what can I get that car for? What can I sell that car for at Salvage? If they think that they can sell it for $15,000 or more, they're probably going to salvage the car. They're going to declare it a totaled car, even if it can be fixed. Now, why is that? Because it's less expensive for them to give you $30,000, sell what they have in front of them for $15,000, than to take it to the shop for $15,000 and have the price run up to maybe $17,000, $18,000, $19,000. Happens all the time when a car gets in an accident, by the way. There's certainty on the salvaged value. They are pretty good at this. There's uncertainty at the repair cost. $30,000 may not even be enough to pay off the loan, by the way, but that's really not the insurance company's problem. Now, on the other end, what happens is there's a wholesaler who buys the car at auction for $15,000 and does the bare minimum to get it running and looking good. It's not $15,000, $16,000, $17,000 worth of work. It might be 10 or 12, and they cut corners. They do things that they shouldn't do to get the car looking good and moving again. And then they give it to the dealer to go ahead and sell. The pre-owned car dealership then sells it to you for $27,500. You see the same exact car in the newspaper for $30,000, and you think, wow, I'm getting this for $2,500 less than what is being advertised at the competition. By the way, may I have a car report, please? And there's silence in the room. Now, what comes next is actually quite bad. Let's assume that you keep talking, a lot of small talk, and you forget about the vehicle history report. They tell you that they'll get you one, and They never do. You sign all the paperwork. You're driving out and you remember that they said that they would get you one, but if they're willing to give you one, then surely there's nothing wrong with the car. A week goes by and you start to hear a squeak in the front of the car. And then you take it on the highway for the first time and you notice that it starts to shimmy. Now, you bought the car and it still has a warranty, so you take it to the new car dealership for warranty work. Not the one where you bought it, not the used car lot down the road, but the dealership where they have warranty work being done, and they give you some bad news. They say, I'm sorry, but your warranty is void on the car because somebody has done some really strange things to this car, and I think that it was totaled and might have been repaired enough to get you to buy it, but it's certainly not one that we can fix. There's $10,000 worth of work that needs to be done here on the axle or on the engine or whatever the problem is. So the bottom line is this. If you're buying a pre-owned car, you need a vehicle history report. If they're unwilling to give you one, walk away. The final point, and the single biggest no-no in dealership financing, is what's called a tied interest rate. You walk into a dealership and the dealership senses that you don't really know a lot about interest rates. In fact, a lot of people don't, so it wouldn't be unusual. And so you sit down and start talking about financing the car, and they talk about an 8% rate, and you don't flinch. So you continue to talk about the car, and they ask you if you'd like the extended warranty, to which you say no because you read somewhere that buying an extended warranty really doesn't pay for itself. And then the dealer says to you, look, if you buy the extended warranty, we can give you a 6% rate instead of an 8% rate because the bank would prefer to have a car that has an extended warranty if they ever need to repossess the vehicle. I know that's unlikely, your credit is good, but at some point in the future, if you don't make a payment, it's easier for them to protect themselves. Now that sounds completely rational. It's actually completely illegal. Banks have been fined millions, tens of millions, even hundreds of millions of dollars for doing this. But basically, a tied interest rate means that if you buy something, then you get a lower interest rate than if you don't buy something. Let me explain. Tying an interest rate to buying additional products and services is completely illegal, and it's one that has gotten a lot of people and dealerships and banks in trouble for. So if they offer you a 6% interest rate if you buy something, or an 8% interest rate if you don't, and they don't give you the 6% interest rate even if you don't buy it, the extended warranty, walk away and actually report them because that's a line that is so bright red that they shouldn't even try to engage in that discussion with you. Have you ever had something that you felt was illegal or unethical presented to you at a dealership? If so, put it in the comment section below because I think a lot of people would like to know what's out there beyond what's in this video. If you like this video, check out that video on how car dealerships make big profit off of you using something called the 4-circle method. Also, don't forget to click subscribe and turn on notifications. There's a lot of change happening in the world, and my guess is there will be a lot of deregulation happening in the world, which will affect you. And we'll work very hard to get what's out there and here for you so that you have all of the information. This is Geoff Schmidt, and I will see you in that video right there.
Holy Schmidt!